At a time when 13 states have made it illegal to discuss racism in classrooms, I feel that it is imperative that we acknowledge systemic racism in addition to the overdue reckoning we are currently doing in regard to the displacement and genocide of Indigenous people. The writing prompts for this story festival were, who are you and where do you come from? And I can't answer those questions without noticing that my white immigrant family benefited from white privilege along the way. In my family, we have a dark sense of humor. Maybe that's inevitable in farm people. The grisly deaths of my maternal great-great uncles and cousins, who were often inebriated and sometimes entangled in archaic farm machinery, became knee-slapping anecdotes for the next generation. I guess trying to farm an arid claim was such fruitless, hard work that all the survivors could do is laugh. When times are tough, we have to make our own joy, and funny storytelling became our way of doing that. My great uncle Ernie was somehow able to have us all rolling around, laughing in tears when he told his story of waking up in the morgue in the Philippines in 1917. He lied about his age, enlisted, been deployed to the Pacific, and discovered there that he liked opium a lot better than combat. For the life of me, I can't construct my own funny story from his near-death scrape with overdose as an addicted teenager. But I remember thinking it was the funniest thing I had ever heard when he told it. Of course, he didn't mention the addiction, changing the opium problem to malaria, and described his enlistment as a misunderstanding, leading to whimsical happenstance adventure. Waking up in the morgue was the only true part of the story he kept, because seriously, how incredible is that? He was a master storyteller, liked a good calamity, and always found the funny in catastrophe. Here's another story my family likes. During the Depression, my grandmother took in children during the summer months for some extra income. I think this is what passed for sleepaway camp. Back in the day, if you were rich enough, you'd leave your kids at a farm for the summer where they would breathe fresher air and perhaps somehow build character in the process. These kids just ran around unsupervised and entertained themselves during the day, though my grandmother always ran a tight ship as far as hygiene, meal times, and bedtimes. A few of the kids were quite memorable to her, like Frank, whose insatiable curiosity wreaked no end of havoc. On one occasion, this 4-year-old came running breathless into the kitchen, finding my aunt and grandmother there. And before my Grandma Grace could admonish him for entering the house without washing up, he cried, "I need more cats!" His eyes were bright and full of expectation. He was gripped with the eureka thrill of scientific discovery and eager to confirm his results, having already drowned all the barn kittens in a bucket. Oh. My family thinks this story is hilarious. And we like animals, we really do. We even go to great lengths to care for them. But still, we laugh, dead cats and all, because, like, what else can you do? Life really is that outrageously crazy. You cannot make this stuff up. Whenever something onerous or stressful is happening in our family, someone can always break the tension by declaring, "I need more cats!" And we'll start to laugh and relax a little, and remember that this too will pass. My uncle loved to tell a story about the time they were visiting us, and my pet rabbit escaped. The part that he found so funny was that my very reserved, stern father, in his suit and bow tie, was helping, looking under all the bushes going, Bun Bun. Here, Bun Bun. Which really was remarkable. He was so withdrawn, he hardly ever spoke. And I laugh at this story, but I do find it really touching to think of my dad letting his guard down like that, willing to behave in this absurd manner, mimicking my own 7-year-old attempts to find her. I was also sobbing intermittently, crying out, "Oh no, Bun Bun, where are you?" And my dad was normally the stable, level-headed ballast to my mom's loopy antics. He normally wouldn't have anything to do with our pets, but on this occasion, he couldn't bear to see me distressed, so he jumped onto the crazy train and made a fool of himself helping to find my rabbit. His reward for taking this brave risk? He was mocked in this story for the next 40 years by my uncle, but to his credit, he laughed along with us at the memory every time we told it. By this time, our search for the rabbit had led us to our closest neighbor's open garage, at which time we heard this shriek, and that's how we found Bun Bun, the rabbit. Poor Carol Broombaum had reached into her warm laundry basket. Instead of the towel she expected, she found a living furry creature and was not amused. As we apologetically withdrew from the garage, and I was elated to have Bun Bun in hand, and my father was palpably relieved, and my mother was apologizing over and over, and we finally got out of her perturbed earshot, and my mother started to giggle, and then we all started to laugh, and by the time we got home, my uncle collapsed at the doorway so that we all had to climb over him to get back into the house. My mother was described at 3 standing room only funerals as being the crazy 4th grade teacher that every kid should be lucky enough to have. And she enjoyed bringing animals into her classroom and had an interest in zoology and a real knack for nursing injured animals back to health. On one occasion, she brought a Russian steppe tortoise home from work that had been rushed to her by someone who discovered it, a cat having eaten off 2 of its feet. The wounds healed very quickly, and any traces of blood were gone right away, but my brother immediately dubbed that tortoise Bloody Stumps, which we thought was a hoot, and also it was a handy name since we already had a slightly bigger steppe tortoise and found the distinguishing trait of disparate limb distribution to be useful. I took care of this particular tortoise and took him outside in the sun at first, a little, then a little more, and at first he didn't go very far, having lost diagonally opposing feet, but after a while he started doing arcs and then course correcting and arcing again, and after a while he could find his own slugs and plants to eat until he just stayed out there all the time. I really identified with the aloneness of this reptile. I was comforted by him even when I wasn't with him, knowing I wasn't the only alone one, that he was out there somewhere also alone. Every once in a while he'd be basking in the sun when I happened by, and I'd bring him a treat, mostly lettuce. He also liked potato peels. Most of the time, though, he was in the foliage, wisely obscured from predators. When cooler temperatures came, though, I brought him in, where he eventually arced his way behind the fridge and hibernated there by the warmth of the compressor. I could tell a lot more animal stories. My mother gradually accumulated a hodgepodge menagerie. There was a rescued starling that became penitently studious while briefly attending Catholic school, frequently declaring, "Hail Mary, full of grace, get out your math books." And a boa constrictor who gave birth to 13 more boa constrictors in the garage. Not to mention an iguana who took a nap in my nervous babysitter's cooling lasagna. I also remember protecting a hermit crab in my pocket while a gerbil my mother had also just acquired was having a snack on her tray table during an American Airlines flight from O'Hare. She also had 2 chinchillas, an obnoxious leghorn rooster called Baby Wavy. I could go on, but there's many confusing yarns there for another time. All of these stories come from growing up in such a wackadoodle, funny story generating family, giving me so much to tell. Sometimes it was awful, but it was never boring. They gave me a lot to work with, and when I'm struggling, I can always count on my brother or cousin to remind me to take a step back and remember that we come from delightfully weird, plucky people, and that we will get through this and eventually find the funny in the now. And all they have to say is, "I need more cats!"